facing the police every single day.
As approved. All right. Let's see. So I have some more public comment, Vice Mayor, I believe, for the very end. I had two. Mr. Dobrin and Mr. Shaughnessy.
It's a very sad day in the history of the city. Victor Dobrin, Real Circle, Northport. It's a very sad day in the city history to see this such high increase pass without delivering at the minimum of your fiduciary duty. I don't want to hear from now on from any commissioner who wants to be on this dais that we have to increase services and so forth. They are empty words. We are paying for services in many ways, and one of them being the impact fees. And John Missel met, and I appreciate that you invited me to talk to you, Mr. Lear. But for example, in the books of the proposal is not accounted for the impact fees. Mr. Lear gave me last year, for 2 years, the summary which we pay just from the West Villages, 2 million. And this year will be more than 1.5 million. Those can be used. And by the way, they can be used towards certain capital like cars and so forth. You recognize that. But there is another observation. The 5 police officers which were taken from the school security, you added in the head count another 5. It was not replenishing the position which you stated today. And that was confirmed because John Missel came to meet with you in my absence. So let's be honest. Let's not continue to mislead the people of Northport. But what you did, you raided the fund, and I have not a problem to use it maybe as a one-time use, but we don't have a plan. You didn't attack any of the issues the city has today. You conveniently sat there and tell me that nobody got a raise and you have this service. That's not right. And believe me, we don't forget. Next year will be an election year, and if any of you want to leave that spot, I will run it today. I will serve the city for $0. Zero. But that's the leadership. That's what we need. One of the city citizens said that we should use the retiree. I will serve the city full time without pay. So take your job seriously. You cannot continue to have aspiration to lead the county when you cannot manage a budget. So please take this as a very strong signal that this is not the right thing what you did tonight. Robbing our fund, reserve fund, and not doing anything what was responsible. Clearly, you have no competence to stay there.
We're done. Meeting adjourned. And in the House, we had a special guest last week, Mayor Chris Hanks. And I just wanted, thank you so much for, stepping up and not only being here last week. And I know it was a hot topic. We had a lot of feedback on Facebook, a lot of things going on. And a lot of people, at least participating. I think a lot of people finally found out that they live in the city of Northport. They showed up to a meeting. I think a lot of people that did participate actually found out that we have a beautiful city hall and that they're part of a great town. Sure. And, their voices can be heard. And it's not necessarily a lot of times to me, and this is my own thought, and I don't give my own thoughts too often, but I watched that show back twice last night, and I promise you, I don't spend a lot of time analyzing. Last night I did. And while I saw a lot of great thoughts, a lot of great presentations, I was a tad embarrassed by the personal attacks on commissioners. I don't believe that it's warranted that you are attacked by name calling, just the abusive language. I think people can be professional, get their voices heard. They lost a lot of credibility with me last night, and I'm not speaking for you at all. I'm not speaking for anyone on the commission, but I just felt like at some point we have to respect what you guys are doing for our town. I also believe that people need to get educated. There was a gentleman there, I won't mention his name. He did a great job last night highlighting the difference, because I came from a community back in Columbus, Ohio, and there was a guy that spoke from Columbus, Ohio. The mayor in Columbus, Ohio gets the blame because he puts the blame on himself because he has that power. We don't have that kind of control here. And I did mention that to you before we get on the air, and we usually don't talk too much before we start these conversations, but can you tell people why there is a mayor in Northport and kind of give them some insight to that?
Well, you know, as most cities in Florida, Northport is a commissioner-manager system, right? So we have a city manager that runs the day-to-day operations. He would be in a corporation, he would be your CAO, chief administrative officer. We would be more like your board of directors if you're talking about business in the private sector. But in Northport, we also have what is called a weak mayor system. And in Northport, the way it works is our mayor rotates every year. Well, he doesn't rotate every year. He's appointed by the board, by the commission every year. So it takes a majority vote of the commission to appoint somebody to be the mayor. Now the mayor does have one consecutive term, so I cannot be mayor next year. I can be voted as vice mayor. I just can't be voted as mayor again next year. But that'll come from the board. That'll come from the commission. Now, the position of mayor is not one of authority. It's more of an honorary position. I think you mentioned before. It's more, every place needs kind of a face. They need someone that kind of can rally around, I guess, whether good or bad.
Right.
Right. They need somebody that can rally around that. And one of the reasons why we came up with, well, we didn't come up with it, but we used to have chairs and vice chairs. But the reason why they voted in the mayor and put it back to a mayor and a vice mayor was because there's a lot of organizations that go on around the state and around the country that require a mayoral system. And so the city was missing out on a lot of these classes, these programs all over the country that could really benefit our city through the mayoral position. Now, as a mayor,
and the reason that we weren't going to those is we didn't have a mayor.
Yes, we had a chair.
Right.
And because they look at mayor, the title mayor, we wouldn't qualify.
Okay.
So that was the reason why, we now have a mayoral system. Now, as a mayor, we are a weak mayor system, which basically just means that I don't have any extra authority or any extra power that the rest of the board has. I'm one vote, just like the other four. The only thing I get to carry is I get to propagate the meeting. That's the only place I have any real authority, is to propagate and make sure a meeting flows smoothly. That being said, the board as a whole can still always overrule me because it is the majority vote that carries the power. So I can establish a meeting, I can flow a meeting, I can do whatever I want, but if the board chooses to overrule any decision I make up there, they have the right to come together and do so.
So in this whole transition of mayor one to the next, and you guys aren't looking at each other like, oh my gosh, they're the mayor this, oh, we're losing power. You guys don't even look at it that way, right?
No.
So there is no power with that brand, the mayor name.
Some may look at it as because, the mayor, I will say since being the mayor, I get a lot more phone calls. I get a lot more invites to be at places.
All right. So I'm going to check mark what you said, though. There's a name and a title and a face. And because that title was there instead of commissioner, I understand you would get that because the chain of command in the normal city, mayor, everyone else, when it comes to votes, it's not mayor and then everyone else. It's the mayor and the same votes for everybody else, all 5, correct?
Well, the way you would look at it, I've tried to describe to kids whenever I go to the grade schools and stuff, because they have a hard time grasping this sometimes. So I say, look at the United States. You have the president, you have the legislative body, right?
Yeah.
So the mayor in a lot of cities, I try to relate to the kids as, think of him as the president, the council as the legislative body. And so that's the way a lot of cities work. In Northport, we have a legislative body that works as one, or is supposed to try to work as one.
I love the fact, I really love the fact that people showed up. I do. I respect the fact that they took their time out and voiced their opinions. I have nothing against everyone voting and voicing their opinion their own way. I do have a complaint when it comes to presentation. I just think I think it's happened across the nation, where we look at our leaders and because it's all started way up top. Now when we get to the city level, we can call them anything we want, it doesn't matter. It even filtered down into me. And I'm not name calling, I'm not picking on anybody. I'm telling you as a citizen who's been here for 20 years, I've been touting get out the vote since I've been here.
Get out the vote.
Get out the vote, get out the vote, get out the vote. And hear me loud and clear. He or I, we don't care who you vote for. It's not, of course, you're running for county. We would love to have county representation since we haven't had it since 1992. Think of it as a whole 70,000 people not having one person at the county level talking for them. But we're okay with that because I don't even understand the mindset of people who live within the city boundaries. And there is something else I was going to ask you, but I'm going to save that. But it's seriously, we've got a whole town here that should be for one goal. What's the best for Northport?
Yeah.
I know that you guys broke things down. I know you guys walked things backwards. I know you guys covered the bases. You made an adjustment at the end, like any great coach would at the end of a game. That's how I look at it. You guys pulled a Bill Belichick last night.
Yep.
Okay? And that's how I look at it. So Patriots fans, rah, 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 because the seriousness of it all is everything that was needed to get covered got covered. That doesn't mean we're healthier as a city, because things change and things happen. While money comes in, things do happen along the way that we have to make up for. And we were talking about that. We're going to have to make up some monies next year. Mm-hmm. And if people go to YouTube and watch the show that you guys put out, it's a fantastic show. It's done very well. It's a quick watch. If you want to stream through it and just hit the highlights, you can do that. All right. But it's a wonderful piece of information. And you can actually see what our local government does and how it operates. Understand this, when you watch that show, the mayor isn't the sole power. Chris Hanks should not get enough blame for this. There's 4 votes that said yes. There's
3 votes said yes.
3 votes said yes.
2 said no.
2 said no, I'm sorry. So if you look at it across the board, people need to walk it backwards for a second, take a deep breath. And I am talking to you all that were there last night. Walk it backwards, take a deep breath. If it's a victory to you, great, congratulations. If it's not a victory to you, some things have to be made. Some adjustments had to be made anyway. We haven't had a raise in 10 years. So it was 10 years, right? Am I correct in saying that?
No, I wouldn't say we hadn't had a raise. In 2017, we did walk back the rates.
Okay.
Even though we were being suggested to move them up incrementally. We actually walked it backwards. In 2018, I think we did the best we could to hold it steady, even though we were being asked to walk it even further. This year, as I said in the workshop, let me say that again, the workshop back in 2017, if we do not do something different, we're going to end up at a higher rate. Last year, guys, if we keep holding this back, it's going to be unbearable. This year, as you saw, there's a lot more folks upset. And I even mentioned last night, I asked Lear, I said, what happens if we keep pulling from this fund and that fund and doing this with our bond rating? Because we're AA+ rated.
All right, I'm going to stop you there
go
for
ahead.
just because people that were there last night, some people may know what that means. People listening today may not have a clue what the bond rating means for this town. Can you explain that a little bit?
Absolutely. That's our financial standing. We are in a phenomenal financial standing. So people are out there saying, they're raising our taxes to fund this crisis. We're not under a crisis. We're trying to keep that crisis from happening because of poor mismanagement in the past by a board of commissioners. So what that does is it allows. Now, here's what we have coming up. We have Price Boulevard, which you're talking tens of millions of dollars, 40 million or so or
Right.
more. All right. We have our lift stations. Some of these things are 60 years old. I mean, they're coming due. We have some things that we have planned to do after 25 years. Well, that's like now.
Right.
You're talking tens of millions of dollars. We have a police station that is currently a decade past due in its capacity. Well, it's $40 million. Looking at this, really soon, we're going to have to draw bonds. We're going to have to do something. And these bond agencies like Moody's or all these other places, whenever they look at this, they look at not only the funds you have, but the plans you have, and do you stick to those plans? What is your financial stability? So when we have emergency funds or we have surtax, which, by the way, is designed for one-off projects like the Aquatic Center or
Right.
or put it into the Brave Stadium, that's what they're designed for. When you start just pulling funds from these and trying to fix the budget with it, these agencies look at that as mismanagement. And so they can come in and they can lower those bond rates, which means our bond rates go higher. And I said this the other day in an email to somebody, I said, if you think it's hard now, we start losing our bond rating, this is going to be a cakewalk. Because can you imagine the interest rates that we might have to pay if we have $100 million worth of bonds out there that pretty soon is going to be required? I mean, we're going to have to do some things to get mobility and water and these things through our city, to fix our lift stations. We have an $80 million facility going on at the West Villages now.
Right. Explain the West Villages, because I'm confused because I heard it last night. It's City of Northport, as far as I know. I know that they're called the West Villages. They have a name of the West Villages, but it's not Northport and the West Villages. It's Northport. We're one.
Yeah.
They found out last night where to come. I'm not trying to make anybody mad. I've sold houses
They didn't
there.
go
I've
to
done
Venice
anything.
when they were looking at their taxes.
They didn't. I love the sales guys up there. I love the whole complex. I love what they're doing up there. I love the fact that we have that kind of growth.
The West Villages is an asset to our.
It's huge. It's huge.
It's phenomenal.
And the misleading information they've gotten on their real estate going to drop if they put their envelope as Northport. It's insane. That's just so childish. It's not even funny. I don't know where they got that information at. I wish they would stop spreading that, because on a professional level, you don't get $50,000 price drop because you live there and you write your city as Northport.
There is no tangible evidence
None.
of stuff like that.
None.
There's a thousand. John, you're in the.
I am,
There's a
I've had this
thousand
conversation.
reasons why property prices go up and down.
Yeah, well, and the truth of the matter is a property appraiser is not going to go into Northport to look for a sale of a home to see if we can drop the price in the West Villages.
No,
they have an area, and that first area is within 1 mile of the house. If they can find a similar home within 1 mile of that house, that's the target. So,
well, that's after they look and see if the address says Palm Beach, right?
right? No, not at all.
No,
It's north.
It has nothing to do with that.
Unfortunately, they have a mailing address that says the city of Venice, but they
That's
don't
the
know.
mailbox they come from.
You know,
That's
the
post
funny thing
office.
is, if they drew a 5 mile radius outside of that, there's some pretty cheaper, much more cheaper homes right up the road that aren't in the city of Venice. They're in Sarasota County.
Yeah.
But there's much cheaper homes that direction
Have Venice address.
that have a Venice address. So there's no sense to that whole standard. And I'm not trying to rake this into the ground. I just want people to understand that your property value is not going to drop because you're part of us. And I love the fact that they're there.
And I'll tell you, John, I'm not even of the argument that we have to change it to Northport either.
No, if they want to say West Villages, I'm fine with that. It was funny last night.
I don't care either way.
I listened to it, and West Villages kept popping up. Well, why didn't you say you're from Northport? I dang well guarantee it would have given me much more credibility to listen to somebody that wasn't just from the West Villages, because that group of people that spoke last night, the majority of them were from there. And the one thing I know for sure that in listening to it, they kept saying that they were on fixed income. If you're living in the West Villages and you're on a fixed income, you must be doing pretty well on your fixed income. I get that. I don't think we should use the word fixed income and the West Villages together when we have true people living in Northport and Venice and Sarasota and Fort Myers and Punta Gorda that are on a fixed income. They can't afford to live in the West Villages. That's my representation of a true fixed income, is somebody who's living low on the totem pole, not somebody that's able to pay $10,000 a year in HOA fees and do their thing. And
$300,000, $400,000 home.
Yeah, so I just want us to, I want people to step back and
Breathe.
breathe a little bit, because I think while they made great points and they had great information, there was one gentleman that there's retirees here that are ex-auditors, and he spoke last night, and I thought his presentation, I give him an A+ because honest to God, he went right through and he was just chopping with the axe. Okay. Well, it's all well and good. Some of those things can be done. And like the other gentleman said, there are things that can't be done because you're in control by the county, by the state, by the feds. You're not just regulated by
the most
yourself.
regulated industry in the country is government.
What would you what would you advise people to do to get involved and maybe get to understand all 5 city commissioners on a different level? Taxes fire people up. Taxes absolutely dig their heels in to people, and they set opinions based on that.
Right.
And a lot of it's misinformation or lack of knowledge on how the city has to do it.
Most people get their information off of fame. All right. When I say most, I'm being generalized. So many people get their knowledge off of Facebook comments from people they've either never met or have only met and have a relationship via Facebook or Twitter or wherever, these social commenters. I mentioned last time I had a gentleman that kept asking questions. I said, we had a meeting, a 35-minute meeting. You just go on YouTube, check it out. In 3-minute segment, every question you asked is answered in that 3-minute segment. That gentleman said, I don't need to watch the meeting. I can see the comments on Facebook, and they're not happy. I said, if you're resting your liberty on the comments of Facebook, then our forefathers are rolling around in their graves. And I'm sorry, John, I mean this when I say it. And I got called out last night for it. But if a 35-minute video or a 3-minute segment of a 35-minute video is too much hassle for you, you have no argument with me.
Right. Well, and I think that the whole thing,
because you're not honest.
Well, and
in your approach.
I don't even want to go with honest. I'm just going to go, maybe you're not educated enough.
Right.
Because if you're listening to other people give you the information, if you're listening to this show and you think I'm factually wrong, do the research. Come call me. 941-391-4663. I have no problem with that. Yeah, and I have no
Do
problem.
some call-ins.
You know, do some call-ins. I have no problem with that. We're not picking at people, but you know what? If we can get people to start learning what the city is, learning how the city operates, and we've talked about this now for about 6 months, where we're missing the boat is a lot of people don't understand our local government and how it works. And a lot of people think, because I know Chris Hanks, I can call him on the phone, he can fix everything. Well, Mayor Chris Hanks can't fix everything by himself. He also can't vote something in by himself. That's the difference with what we have and what
I
other
also
cities have.
cannot get your application to the top of the HR pile. That's illegal for me to do.
Yes, but there are, exactly.
But I do get those calls. Hey, man, can you bump me to the top?
Yeah, can you just do me a favor?
No, I can't.
No, and you guys are governed by the Sunshine Law. You've got lots
And
of.
we're one of the heaviest regulated sunshine states in the country.
We are, and you know, Facebook isn't operating. I know I've got a lot of people out there that are listening right now, and I wish I could see comments or anything. I promise you, I will follow up on any comments. My screen is blank, so I can't do that. But you're listening to WKDW 97.5 FM and Real Talk 97.5. I'm just pulling it and see if it's there, but you know, I love the fact that people are embracing what's happening. I love the fact that they're voicing their opinions on what's out there. And I don't see many comments yet. Thanks, Chris, for opening that out. We've got some people watching though. There's like 12 people on, but you know, if you have a question, feel free to text it in. My phone number is 941-391-4663. I'll ask any question. And Chris is willing to take them. Your overall assessment last night of what your thought was going into that meeting and how it ended. I want to know what your overall assessment was on presentation, city, and how you kind of felt overall.
Well, you know, we didn't do much presentation as far as city staff last night because we did that on September 5th. We've done that a dozen times up to this process. Last night was our second reading, right? So anyways, that being said, you know, going into that meeting, you know, there was probably 150 people at one point that were outside, you know, with their signs. By the time I got there, most had gone into the room. So when I sat down and I saw the room full and they were filled with signs and they had, you know, they had their points to make and, you know, they were making their opinions, their First Amendment rights to do. You know, I open a meeting and I always let people know, all right, the acoustics of this room, especially when I know it's going to be hot.
Right.
And this is usually a hot meeting.
It is a
hot topic,
yeah.
right? So I open a meeting letting everybody know that the acoustics of this room are designed for the public to hear, not for us. So all that noise goes back to them. But the acoustics are so bad that if you're in that audience and you're just whispering, I can hear what you're saying from the dais. If you're behind the glass where the press box is and you talk in a normal voice, I can hear what you're saying. So just in that low voice, I can hear you, and it makes it very difficult for me to hear the members beside me.
Right. And
So
I did notice you were a couple times. You said, you know, keep noise down. Keep
yeah,
noise
I mean,
down.
Debbie helped me do it.
Yeah,
Many people did that.
Because it's tough on them too.
It's very hard to hear. And so, you know, I opened a meeting saying it's very difficult to hear. So if you're going to, you know, so I can't have any clapping, yelling, hooping, and hollering, because if you do that, we just cannot hear. You're going to disrupt the meeting. You're going to disrupt what we're able to hear, and you're going to disrupt the public commenter and how we're able to hear them. They're speaking, supposedly they're supposed to be speaking to us. I think many were speaking to the audience last night. And I did let that play out a little bit, even though by Robert's rule and by most purposes I should not have, but I did because I felt the negative recourse I would have received on it would have far outweighed me just kind of letting it play out as much, as simply as I could, as long as it wasn't too out of control. But anyways, that being said, you know, whenever you're clapping, I can't even hear what they're saying towards the end of what they're saying. And they're supposed to be telling me what they want from me. And so at some point, after about a dozen times, at least a dozen, I always have to watch my words because somebody's going to pull me out and say, it was only 11.
Right. Yeah. No,
All right. But you get what I'm
It's
saying,
a roundabout.
right?
It's a roundabout.
Like, come on, man. Let's not parse these words.
That's right.
You know, but you know, I wrapped that gavel and I mentioned a dozen times, guys, I can't hear. We've got to stop doing this. I even said a couple of times, man, I'll clear the room, because it just wasn't helping. Towards the very end of the initial meeting, when Mr. Dobrin was done talking, I wrapped the gavel because I couldn't hear what he was finishing up with. The crowd was doing that, so I wrapped the gavel and I said, meeting adjourned, we're done. And I left, and they were in an uproar. I got a lot of people saying that I didn't want to hear the public commenters because they were calling me out. I let one lady get up there and just rip me to shreds and didn't say a word about it. It had nothing to do with the public commenters. It had everything to do with the public that could not control themselves. You know, we're adults here. I let everybody know the condition of the room. And when you walk in that room, you accept the rules of decorum that is put on every commission card and on every agenda.
Right. Well, and with any meeting, I don't care where.
And I have business to run there.
Well, and it's whether it be a corporate meeting or a city meeting or a White House meeting, there has to be some sort of rules, and you have to follow them. Our senators do. Everybody does.
You wouldn't be able to do this in any Senate chamber.
No, and I get it. I get why people were fired up, and like I said, I am not opposed to fired up citizens going to City Hall. The one guy said,
got involved.
Well, they got involved, and let me tell you, thank God.
Yeah.
All right, on many fronts, I think they got involved, because I hope they spread the word to get involved more. That does not mean that we should eliminate anyone that's working in Northport government right now from going to another level somewhere else to represent us, because we have no representation. I just want to make myself loud and clear there. Whether you get voted in or whether you don't get voted in, we, as Northport citizens, we should be looking at county spots just as much as we do any other spots. And that county spot, 1992, I think was the last known representation that we had at the county level. Yes, they say District 3. Any of them live in Northport? Nope, not one. I'm talking Northport. We have 70,000 people. We outnumber Venice and Sarasota. We have more population than both of them. Okay, we didn't used to. 20 years ago, we were sitting back here, and we were the city that couldn't grow. Now we've been the city that has outgrown them. We still don't have a lot of infrastructure. We still got to work on that. There's still a lot going on.
Well, people don't know the history of Northport and the reason we're in the condition we're in. You know, we were a GDC community.
Right.
GDC was concerned with selling plats of land for $100 down and $100 a month all over the earth. You know, they weren't concerned with the infrastructure. They weren't concerned. I mean, some of our roads were created by drug lords, you know, as landing strips, you know. So in the early days, you know, so you know, there's a lot we have to do to get to where we need to be, and we're still a young community. We're only 60 years old, and we are the fastest growing. We were the fastest growing city in the state, one of the fastest growing in the country. You know, and there's a lot of cost that comes with that. And people can say, well, I thought, you know, every time it booms, you should be making those tax dollars. Well, you don't understand the process. A city needs about 25% commercial space. You know, its growth needs to be about 25% needs to be commercial. We're at about 15%, so we're not even viable by our commercial space. But in order to bring that, you do a couple of things. You bring in instigators like the Braves. You know, businesses come because of rooftops. That's why they come, whether it's manufacturing or whether it's commerce. They come by rooftops. So you create it with sometimes you can jumpstart it with stuff like the Braves with that economic driver. The other is you do it with amenities to bring those rooftops so you can have a longer sustained growth. But even though we're growing, the majority of our growth so far is with rooftops, and we lose money on rooftops. But we need those to come in. So You put in an amenity like a water park to bring in those rooftops. You put in an economic driver like the Braves. You help bring them in. You incentivize them to come. Man, we have so much going on behind the scenes for the Atlanta Braves. And people say, well, where is it? Where is it? But gosh, John, they opened in March. They hadn't been open 6-7 months. They hadn't even had a full spring training season. Can we get this thing just a little bit of time to work here? You know, you throw a seed in the ground, it doesn't grow up overnight. You know, you got to have some stuff.
I agree, and I
got to have time.
I got Facebook. They finally fed it through, so I'm going to ask some real quick questions.
Right.
We've been on. Normally, this does not happen, and I can fire them out. But Steve Burke, why does the mayor dislike his constituents so much?
I don't. I love every one of them. That's why I do what I do.
Yeah, and I think. And I've watched so many commissioners go through, and you're not by yourself with this question. There was so many. You can't always. I don't think in anything that we do, I don't think you can always be the perfect person and do what everyone wants you to do. You can never be that 100% person. I wish, Steve. I wish you would maybe.
Steve Burke, I don't know that Steve Burke's ever actually called me or we've sat down for coffee. I don't know, which I would love to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's your invite, Steve. I think that's your quickest answer.
Put it in the calendar.
And
I'll buy it.
Maggie Carey, 2 things. I did not say that people in the West Villages were not allowed to be on fixed income. Correct yourself right there. I'm going to correct you. I did not say that. What I said was, if you're on fixed income and you live in the West Villages, it's not compared to somebody who lives on less means
in Old Town
and has less. That's all I'm saying. I mean that wholeheartedly across the board, because you can't compare apples to oranges with me. I'm not going to let you. Apples to apples, people that live in the West Villages are not on less income. They're on an income fixed base, but they're living above their means.
Well,
compared to other people.
Yeah, I mean, you can be on a fixed income, and have a big, retirement plan, you got to look at percentages,
right?
You can't look at dollars.
Well, and she asked another one, and I kind of agree, and we kind of hit on this a little bit, and you can answer this if you want. You chose not to last night, but you chose not to comment on your dissent. And they're asking.
Yeah, I've commented 12 times on my dissent because I didn't approve of the millage that was presented.
And was it because the lower rate?
I didn't approve of it because it's putting us in a worse condition in the coming years, just like every decision we've made. That's not fiscal responsibility to me.
Okay.
That's not conservative values. Conservative values, conservatism isn't about being cheap. It's about having value. We talked about this the last time, maybe.
We did.
And, conservative, we have values. It's conservative values. We value things like we value life. We value liberty. And in the finance, the fiscal side, we value. It's about the value you spend your money on. It's not the cheapest thing. It's what do you get for the value. I'll give you a perfect example. So when road and drainage methodology came, and some people were upset about that, right? Because it came in, they didn't like the methodology, which by law we had to have a methodology. Again, we had to spend money on a study that we didn't want to do, but the law required it. Came back with the methodology. We approved the methodology, but at the second reading, it came back, and they had brought us the original, and they had brought us an updated version of the methodology. The methodology saved, I think it was like $4 a year, but we lost $2.5 million worth of service. I'm sorry. To me, conservative value says $4 a year, and I get $2.5 million worth of service. Let's pay the $4 a year. That, to me, is conservative value and fiscal responsibility.
So the dissent was because it wasn't the rate that should have been.
Yeah. I mean, we're putting ourselves in a worse condition. And again, if we keep doing it the way we're doing it, and I'm not saying that what happened last night was a bad thing. We got the best we've ever gotten last night. I mean, we're in a better place than we've ever been in the last handful of years anyways. But that being said, if we continue to work it the way we're working it, using pots of money that are not designed for that, it's going to hurt our bond rating, and this is going to be a cakewalk.
But the one thing I want you to watch it back. I want you to listen to the show back. I want you to watch body language and facial expressions. And while I agree with people showing up and voicing their opinions, forward that into the body language of commissioners. I personally didn't see anybody jumping up and down for joy over even having this vote. I didn't see any of the 5 of you going, I can't wait to do this to our constituents. I just didn't. I saw a lot of stress in that room. I saw a lot of decisions that had to be made that were probably not the best for city workers at times. Things had to be played and played out differently than you wanted to. I want you to kind of hit on that, because I seriously don't think even Debbie McDowell voted it down. I haven't talked to her. I can't speak for her, but I saw her body language. Okay, she's not happy with it, but what was the alternative? I don't know what the alternative was for her, and I'll talk to her about that. But I didn't think any of you showed excitement. I don't even think you'd have showed excitement if you'd gotten the 4% or 4.0, would you?
Well, listen, I mean, I live in the city too.
Right.
Like, I mean, what I do affects me. We had people say, could you imagine if this was happening to you? It is happening to me.
Margie asking again, then why in the town hall did the city manager say that we are doing fine? I think you addressed that earlier, because you talked about we're not really in a crisis.
No, there is no crisis. We're trying to avoid the crisis. Right now we are in a great financial standing. I would ask Margie, go and watch the September 5th meeting. I still don't understand why people won't just go do that. It's been mentioned 1,000 times. Go watch the September 5th meeting. Right in the very beginning, the first 10 minutes, you get to see the financial. I mean, it was an entire financial update of where the city is.
Right.
And if you watch those charts, one, I don't care what anybody says, the studies were done by staff. We are the lowest taxed city in the state by comparison. You cannot compare us to Sarasota City. One, they have a third less population. They're not even a tenth of our land size. I'm just throwing out a number there. I hadn't done the math. But they're not close to our land size. They don't have fire rescue. They don't have waste management services. These are, you can't compare that to us. And then whenever you're saying, well, look, you're here and Sarasota is at this. All right, but you're not comparing apples to apples again, because you're using their this year rate or last year's rate, and you're comparing it with our proposed rate. Let's be honest in our approach. What is their proposed rate? And then look at our proposed rate. Still won't match, because we're not apples to apples. But when you looked across the state, every city study with the comparables,
right,
we ended up being like the second lowest. And we were only the second in some of the factors by like 0.01% or 0.01 mils. Like, truly, we are in a great spot. We're still not at the marketplace we need to be. But that being said, Jill Luke came up with a great plan that the board grabbed a hold of, and we got the most that we're going to get. We got the most that we've done. We're doing better now than we did last year and the year before, but we're still not there. And that's why I voted no. We're still at a place that is going to put pressure next year and the year after.
Well, and I watched the room, and I kept thinking to myself, how's this going to play out? I didn't know where it was going to go. So if somebody thinks I had insight, I don't. I have none to what was going to happen at that meeting. I watched that back thinking, what happened? I did. I watched it back going, what happened? And that's why I watched it the second time, because there was so much anger that I kind of had to weed some of that out.
Well, there's a lot of emotion.
There was a ton of emotion, and here again, I'm not telling you I'm not on your side. I'm not telling you I'm not on your side. What I'm telling you is some of that I had to kind of weed out for myself to kind of get my hands around some of the comments that were being made that were to the point, but a lot of the other fluff didn't need to be said. I don't think any of you should be ousted from your position for trying to get the budget where it's at. I don't think we're that extreme. I don't think we went that far. Could we have? Probably. Are we getting people involved now that weren't involved before? I know for a fact we are. This is one of the hottest topics going on right now. And I think the flip side of that is I think people are learning what our government is and how it operates, which is the first and foremost issue with a lot of the comments that were made last night, because you're not regulated, or you are regulated to carry on certain things certain ways. So where somebody comes in the door and says, we want to move that road sign, can't do the road sign.
Not without an $80,000 study.
An $80,000 study. So yes, they want to move things and they want to do things. If it cost you $80,000 every time you turned around to move your washer and dryer, you wouldn't do it.
And and sometimes we have to use these. I mean, we have to use these contracted organizations because the state wants them to be fair and equitable. Well, these guys know that we can't do that in-house and have the state accept it. So what are they going to do? That's going to raise the market rate.
Right.
And they know that they can charge. We had several guys. You had mentioned something earlier, about understanding the process and people having a lot of emotion. There were a lot of signs out there that said this goes into learn your government, learn the process. A lot of there were some people that had signs that says raise taxes, you get recalled.
Right.
Okay. You need to understand the process. It doesn't happen like that. You can't. I mean, it's not just going to happen the way you say it's going to happen.
Right.
And there's a reason for that because politicians, your commissioners, no matter who it is, they put themselves in a position like this. We're in a position that 99.9% of the population don't get put into. I can't go to Publix sometimes, John, and just get through the checkout counter. Your life literally changes. And so as such, they recognize that you're going to make decisions that are very unpopular. Abraham Lincoln's given the quote of this: you'll please some of the people some of the time, all the people none of the time.
Right.
And what most people are looking for, they say, what is your opinion on this? Well, they get mad at you whenever you give it. Well, you're not asking for my opinion. You just want me to give you your opinion. And you say, but the public want this. Really? Because I've only heard it from a handful of you or you. I mean, I keep getting told this. Nobody wants the water park. But I see that in like one group by like 10 people. I have on my mayor page, I think it's over 15,000 reach on the water park with 130 engagement, 1 mad face, 3 wow faces. Everything else is hearts and thumbs. And I actually put like a $10 boost behind that to make sure it didn't just hit my people, that it kind of went out there. I have over, I think 11,000 of that is organic. 4,000 was what I paid for, to make sure, listen, let's see where the public is. 0 negative comments.
Right.
So
where did the pool money come from?
Surtax, where it was supposed to come from.
Could that money have been utilized elsewhere instead of the pool?
It could have been utilized.
I had this conversation, so you're going to answer it, because I had this conversation. It could. I mean, it's a one-time spend, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what it's designed for. Can we use it? Well, we used it last year to help hold the rates down, right? But that never looks good to your bond issuers. It never looks good to the banks.
And the one thing that I know we've talked about on the show, and it's hard to project where the pool's going to land one way or the other with revenue, because we haven't even had it open yet, so we don't even know. And I listening back, and I will correct something I said. I did hear Debbie McDowell last night. I just don't want to put my words in her mouth. So that's why I let Debbie come on. I love Debbie very much, and I don't want to misspeak Debbie's words because I can't remember them specifically. So thank you for highlighting that on Facebook. But the pool itself, that's going to create a revenue for itself at some point.
Well, all right. So I get a lot of flack for this pool. This has been called the Hanks hole. You know, everything's about Hanks. If it's negative, it's about Hanks, and I had everything to do with it. If it's positive, like the Braves, I just happen to be sitting in office when it happened. So I don't know how I can not have one without the other. Either I had a hand in everything or I had a hand in nothing. But that being said, I keep getting told it's the Hanks hole. Let's please remember, I don't make decisions alone. I brought an idea to the board. The board liked the idea. The board went with the idea. The consultants came back and said, the market studies are showing you need to be at about $12 a day for this thing to earn revenue. And they gave us 2. They said 10 will make it net neutral, 12 will make it in revenue. I mentioned during that workshop, I bet the market will bring 15 because it's always going to be easier to lower the rate than it will be to have to raise it. But the board, not me, decided on lowering that rate and subsidizing it down to 8. Does that mean it's going to lose revenue? No, it doesn't mean any of that. There's a lot of factors at play here. But that being said, it was my idea. Absolutely. I gave an idea because it's important whenever you have something like that you keep people there. When you keep them there, they buy concessions. You want them to stay there 4, 5, 6, 10 hours.
Right.
That's what you want. A pool, somebody might stay a couple of hours. They'll get their swim in, have fun, then they'll leave. If you put some extra amenities in it, they might stay 5 hours, 6 hours. In that time is where they go and they get their Cokes, they get their hot dogs, they get their food. That's where you start making the money. And so that was why I came with the idea. And I said, listen, a community where I'm from, they have a small aquatic center like this, which, by the way, is not the same as the water park that was voted down in 2010 by referendum. Completely different facility. It was an entire park worth about $20 million 10 years ago. All right. What that equates today with 30 million today, I don't know. But 20 million back then. This is a completely different deal. Back then, we were in the middle of a recession, completely different than we are today. So that being said, yeah, it could still earn revenue with the way it is. May we have to raise the gate prices? Maybe. I'm just saying it's easier to lower them than it is to raise them and then find that sweet spot.
Yeah, and see, I maybe Columbus, Ohio kind of comes back. The guy talked last night, and I was like, well, he just mentioned Columbus. I've never met him. I'd love to, but the whole thing is the city of Columbus, they own golf courses, they own pools, they own all kinds of stuff. I was wondering why we didn't buy Sable Trace and keep it open as a public golf course. It's city run, all those things. I never pushed that issue. I dropped it like a hot rock because I'm not really into the politicking side of it. To get that done, I just watch how things happen, and I wonder if the people in Sable Trace now wouldn't walk it backwards and say, maybe we made a mistake with our property values because we let that golf course kind of go, and that idea of incorporating that into the tax base. Property values stay up when you have a golf course out your back door. You have a house now, but you don't have a golf course view. So in the sales side of things, that's how I look at it. So there are things that we have in this town that, and I've kind of had to switch gears here a little bit, and I promise I will have Chris back on and all the other commissioners too. But because I only got 5 minutes, we kind of blew through 50 minutes that fast. Yeah, but that was fast. But I love the fact that you guys are asking questions. I wish I could ask more. I believe that the surtax, Stephanie Gibson, I believe the surtax could have been used for the price and Sumter widening, right?
Oh, it can, yeah.
So I'm
you just gotta watch how you do it. You take 12 million. You're still $30 million away, but yeah,
Well, I
could
think
have.
she's applying that towards.
But we're also looking to the future. You build an amenity, which brings the rooftops, which brings the commercial.
I think she's applying that towards the pool, and
Right,
and
that's what I'm saying.
the whole committee voting. That vote with the pool. We can't go backwards. We can't fill a pool in at this point, and act like we didn't spend the money and it's coming back to us. It's gone. It doesn't exist now. Got to figure out how to move forward. Whether you like the idea or not, there's people here that do like the idea, and there are people here that don't like the idea. I just don't know the answer to a lot of these questions. I don't know you do for getting 100% buy-in on the pool, or where that money's spent, or even the budget on how that's all constructed and put together. I don't know that you could get 100% buy-in from this town.
Oh, there's no.
And there's no way you could.
Everybody. I mean, there's 75,000 people.
Right.
Give or take. Everybody's gonna have an opinion.
We've got about how much time? 2 minutes left. So,
And I am a representative form of government. I do not believe I have to poll the community every time I do something. I gave my resume in 2016, and people said, do that. And I have not wavered from what I said I would do. And going into the county, I won't do the same thing either. I'll do exactly what I said I'm going to do.
I'm going to give you another minute to highlight how you really have interpreted. How many budgets have you gone through?
This would be my third one.
Out of all the budgets that you've done, which one would you think is the most difficult?
This one,
Why?
just because of the increase. I wish we would have done this again 2 years ago. Last year it would have been easier, but this is a big bite. It's a big bite. Especially whenever you look at the percentage, when people just, they're not used to that. You're used to a couple of percent here, a few percent there. You're just not used to this big of a leap. But again, we have been not paying what we should be paying for years to keep the services that. And people say, why are you raising my millages when I'm not getting the services that I already want? Why, the yards aren't already being, the grass isn't being mowed now? Because they don't have the funding. We've been holding this back. We haven't been able to supply what we needed to them in the past.
Right.
Now we're trying to get to a place where they can actually do what's necessary.
So the next big step for the 100 people that were involved last night, or 100 plus, we've got an opportunity to send them on to another level. How do they stay involved?
Well, I would say, listen, those that want to recall, get involved, get out there, figure out what it takes to recall somebody, and let's get me recalled if that's what you want to do. But just get involved. Do what it takes. Get out and vote. You don't want to vote for me for county? Don't vote for me for county. Just get out and vote. Just make a difference.
Well, and I've said that all along. And I want everybody at the end of this show to hear me loud and clear. I want everybody in this town to vote that can vote. I don't want you voting twice. I'm not asking that. I want everybody to go vote, because Tallahassee looks at the numbers. People look at the numbers when they travel here. If we don't vote, they don't even talk to us at any level. So get out the vote and stay involved. I love it. This is John Rawlings. I want to thank Allstate Insurance, Mark Harden Group on Toledo Blade. Call Justin and Katie. They're awesome. They'll make sure that you're in good shape, and we'll talk to you later.
They're my folks,
Chris,
too.
there you go. Thanks. I appreciate you coming in.
John. Absolutely, buddy.
Thanks, everybody, for listening, and I will have a great show on Monday for you, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Have a great day.
Hey, Sheriff County, this is Sheriff County COPWATCH. I am using any video here with under fair use. If you have criticism, reporting, teaching, etc., and please donate. I do not make money from YouTube, and there are different ways to donate in the video links. Thanks.